Hello and welcome in. It's a Sunday early morning edition here of Always College Football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy, and we are so grateful that you're here with us today. Woke up early, went to bed late. I tried so hard to stay up to the end of the Florida State and Stanford game. I made it to about 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the fourth quarter and fell asleep on the couch. So I was up about, 1:15 or so local time, desperately trying to stay awake for it. I did, however, pick it right back up after I fell asleep, watched it this morning. So I know what happened. Stanford, good win over Florida State. 4 losses in a row now for the Noles. Not good. Not good whatsoever. What a Saturday. What a weekend we had in college football. We are just going to buzz through it. Before we do, we want to encourage all of you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. For those of you that haven't, left us a rating. We've seen, by the way, all the people leaving us awesome reviews the last couple of weeks. We really appreciate that as well, especially knowing that our ratings kind of got sabotaged there for a bit because a team got left out of the playoffs 2 years ago who might be 0-4 in the ACC. But either way, I look at kind of everything, and I'm just hopeful, very hopeful that you guys can continue to push back on some of the rating sabotage that we've experienced. We also appreciate those of you that are with us on the ESPN College Football YouTube page. Like, rate, subscribe there as well. Awesome stuff. All right, this is week 8, and we will a little later today, keep it locked in here at Always College Football. A little later today, if you want to come back this evening or so when we wrap things up, we got to watch the tape. We like doing this Sunday morning show because we like to kind of just give you rapid fire reactions, read some box scores, and then make some, evaluations of what we saw in real time. This is how y'all watched it. This is how most people watch it. So this is what I saw in watching it real time. And frankly, I don't get to watch them all because I am in the booth, and I was in the booth in Tuscaloosa on Saturday night. That was between Tennessee and Alabama. I can tell you all you want to know about that game, but I don't know. We'll get to that one in a minute, but there were a million others that I absolutely need to get to. So we'll watch the tape. We'll come back later this evening, and we'll break it down even further. 9 ranked teams lost this week. 9. 4 teams in the top 10. It all started Friday with Miami, and then Ole Miss, Texas Tech, and LSU. You see all these high-profile teams, these teams with high expectations, these remarkable juggernauts in some cases, all of a sudden being exposed. Texas Tech is maybe the best example. Then you have a couple other teams in Ohio State and Indiana that just go and just handle business, even though Indiana for like 2 seconds was maybe sweating Michigan State. All things considered, though, it was a wild day, and it further proves that we're getting to a point in which every single week you can get got. Every week you can get got, that's for sure. All right, let's go into the biggest games of the day. We'll start with Georgia and Ole Miss. This was just an incredible football game, was it not? I mean, for 3 quarters in this game, it was all offense. Very few moments in which you thought the defense was going to make a play. You're sitting there. It's back and forth. It's just red zone, end zone, big play, big play. Bend, don't break. Keep it in front of you, and yet they couldn't. To me, this was like one of the most entertaining games I think I've seen in quite a while. And you're sitting there in the beginning of the fourth quarter, late in the third quarter, and Ole Miss is in a really good spot. I mean, it's 35-26. They got a 2-score lead. All is looking good. And then you sit there and you finally, for a Georgia defense that has struggled this year, I mean, really struggled throughout the entire season. And I know people will say, oh, they haven't. They've stopped the run. I think Georgia is better on offense than they are on defense. And we'll talk about that a little later in this evening show. This Georgia identity has changed drastically, and we will get to it, like I said, a little later on. But the offense definitely did their part. The defense didn't do anything until about 12:45 remaining, and they finally generate a little pressure. C.J. Allen forces an incompletion, and all of a sudden you get the punt. First punt of the entire game with a little under 13 minutes left there in the fourth quarter. And then Gunner Stockton, who I thought came of age in this performance. He's been good all year, but I don't know how much people have been paying attention because a lot of it has kind of been dink and dunk. And a lot of the evaluation of Georgia has resulted in kind of a run game and, oh, well, they're running the ball, they're pounding the ball. What's wrong with the offensive line? What have you? Well, Gunner Stockton's actually been excellent all season long. And they goes down, hits Lawson Lucky, who had himself a day as well. They take the lead And then, boom, they slammed the door shut. So if you look at where things were, to outscore Ole Miss 17-0 in the fourth quarter, to outgame them 144-13 in the fourth quarter, very impressive there in the fourth quarter by Kirby Smart, by Glenn Schumann to finally figure something out. To have 38 minutes nearly in time of possession. The offense was outstanding as well, man. Really impressive performance across the board. This was a game that was back and forth, and I think it proves that Georgia's not going anywhere, but they have some real vulnerabilities this year, that's for sure. They do, however, have a quarterback. They still have outstanding weapons on the outside, especially a tight end, and they can still get it done against anybody in college football, even if one side of the ball does not have their best day. We also know, too, that Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss is the real deal, man. He was great, especially there in the first three quarters of this football game. We'll go next to Vanderbilt, who knocks off LSU 31-24. People are still just refusing to acknowledge that Vanderbilt's real. People are refusing to acknowledge that Vanderbilt can play. Guys, this is a good football team. I know nobody wants to say that because, oh, it's Vanderbilt. Well, you don't know ball then. That's fine. If you want to make that claim, you don't know ball. And I'm not saying Vanderbilt wins the national championship. I'm saying, like, this is a well-operating outfit. They can beat you on offense with a dynamic quarterback. They have pretty good personnel defensively, especially in the front seven. This is a very good football team. They get their first win over LSU in a really long time, in 35 years. They are sitting there with their best start since 1950. And Clark Lee there's their problem every single week. And they still have some very difficult tests on the schedule. Still have to play against Mizzou. Still have to play against Tennessee. Vanderbilt, man, they might mess around and be in the mix here at season's end. They really might. It's kind of crazy. The methodical answers that they had in this game was pretty dang impressive. Long, time-consuming, clock-chewing drives. I mean, 14 plays, 75. 10 plays, 75. And it's kind of an example of, man, they just have the defense on their heels the whole time. And they're so content taking the 3-4 yard gain, and did it kind of throughout. If you look at the LSU Tigers, LSU sitting there, everything seems to be in a really good spot, right? You look at where LSU is, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it was on display. You get a big run by Caden Durham, first and goal, 1 yard line. You have a penalty, and all of a sudden they're forced to settle for a 23-yard field goal. That right there is the absolute killer there. And you look at just kind of how the strategy, the ball control, 36 minutes of time of possession, Diego Pavia, who's one of the best players in college football. He really is. He is just a complete take over the game grinder and deserves a lot of credit for the performance in this game, because that was a pretty good defense, and they just ran for 240 yards against a pretty stout defense that had been in the top 15, top 20 in all of college football. You also look at it too. Nussmeier and company. I thought Nussmeier actually played decent. I thought he played pretty well in this game. There's a lot of things to like. Trey'Dez Green has emerged as a star. There's a lot of things to like about what LSU did in this game. However, the defense was the problem, which is not something that you would have anticipated with how they played in the first 4 games of the season. The defense has regressed a little bit, and that'll be something worth watching because it doesn't get much easier. Guess who's coming to town this week? A&M, who is 7-0, who is undefeated. Let's go next to the Holy War. They're late in the day. BYU knocks off Utah 24-21. This was a really interesting game. Didn't get to watch a lot of it, so I want to make sure I go back and watch the tape. So just hear me out. This will be a little surface level. When I go back and watch the tape, we'll revisit it at some point a little later down the road. 14 unanswered points for BYU. Things looking very impressive there at one point. Looked like for a moment 14-10, that might be all you need there early in the fourth quarter. And the Cougars now in consecutive games being able to bounce back from fourth quarter deficits with a true freshman quarterback. You know how difficult that is to do? I mean, so difficult. They obviously are able to bounce back, get the lead 17-14, pour it on again. A couple costly mistakes for Utah in this game. But man, Bear Bachmeier, he showed incredible will on that scramble, breaking some tackles, dragging some defenders to the end zone for the 22-yard touchdown to give him the 10-point lead with about 4 minutes left. Man, that was very, very impressive. Really like what I've seen from BYU from a mental toughness standpoint. They were outgained by over 100 yards in this game. I mean, that I think says a lot about this team's ability to just find a way. They obviously forced a critical turnover. They were pretty good in the red zone as well. That, I think, was the big key, and the fourth quarter points. That was what it was all about. So very impressed with what I've seen from BYU all season long. I did not expect this one. I thought Utah would take care of business. They couldn't. BYU gets a critical win there in the Holy War to keep that unblemished, unbeaten record alive in the Big 12, where, guess what? A big king fell on Saturday. That Big 12 race is now wide open. Let's go next to Alabama, Tennessee, third Saturday in October. Alabama's just a good football team. I know a lot of people have asked me about this and just, what do you think of Bama? They're just a good football team. Like, they know who they are. They're tough to beat. They don't often beat themselves. They're going to make you beat them. They're going to play smart. They have a really good quarterback. They have really good weapons on the outside. They have smart football players. They have tough and physical defensive players in the front seven especially. And I think the secondary, people are going to look at the yardage and the box score of this game, and they're going to look at, oh, well, Tennessee has 400 yards. Bama had a few penalties. They're going to look at this, and it's going to be completely misleading in some cases, because I don't know exactly how many, but a vast majority of Tennessee's yardage there in the second half is a little misleading because it was already at that point a 17-point game, and Alabama really wasn't in a position to try to totally sell out and play defend. They're going to play passive, they're going to play drop, and they're going to give you easy, cheap yards. They just are going to tighten up when they get the red zone, which is what they did a couple times there down the stretch. Biggest moment of the game, without question, the pick six at the end of half. We will break this game play down a little later on the podcast this evening, but it was a really, really not good play call. I can explain why later, partly because it's goal line personnel. You know, you had the defense knows you have to throw it, and yet you have two defensive linemen and two tight ends on the field. It's goal line. The only time you throw it out of that personnel is intent to deceive the defense. Oh, I think we're running it. Let's actually surprise them and throw it. Well, when you're in a situation where there's 9 seconds left on the clock, you have no timeouts, the defense knows you have to throw it. So you're not going to catch them off guard. Just a bad decision, and we can break it down a little later on the show. I just feel bad because I do think that there in the first half, Tennessee actually had a pretty good plan. They weathered the early storm. They got the run game going. Things started to look up for him. I thought Aguilar was playing pretty well. I thought he made some good decisions, threw some nice passes. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And you just could never really relinquish that massive deficit that you had going into half because of that moment. So looking at that, that was obviously the biggest point of the game. Alabama had two back-breaking drives to create 99 yards on one drive, to go 75 on another there in the second half of that football game is massive. And if you look at it, like I said, there's 20-point score, but 410 yards allowed. Volunteers average about 530. But all things considered, man, if you look at the numbers, it was a better defensive performance than that. They also recorded a safety. There was a bit of a pass rush there in the first half that was, I don't want to say non-existent, but not very consistently visible there most of the first 6 games of the season. So really big. Tennessee, a few takeaways here from them. They weren't able to generate any sacks. They forced a lot of negative plays. They could not get home to Ty Simpson, but they did make Alabama play behind the stick several times in the run game. So that was really good as well. And I think you got to kind of give a tip of the cap to Deshaun Bishop here too, because I thought Deshaun Bishop was awesome for Tennessee. I love this young man. Man, he is a great player. And their running back, he can do a lot of special things. So we'll break that game down a little bit more this afternoon, this evening. But that was a game of massive momentum swings. And I can't say I've seen Bryant-Denny or heard Bryant-Denny louder than it was on that 99-yard interception return at the end of half. Notre Dame knocks off USC. People are saying this is the final meeting. I just don't buy it. Like, maybe I'm crazy. I don't buy it. People keep saying that. We'll talk about that maybe a little later today, maybe a little later in the week, maybe even in the off season. Like right now, the SEC has adopted a 9-conference game plus Power 4 game schedule. Like that's what the SEC just adopted. The Big Ten has not yet put that in, but they're not going to let the SEC do it and not do it themselves. I think the Big Ten is going to say, yeah, you can just play your 9-conference games and play 3 powder puffs. No, the SEC is playing 10. We'll play 10. So I don't think this game is going away. We'll see. It shouldn't. It's too important. So fingers crossed. Hopefully this isn't the last version, but a really impressive performance from Notre Dame here. All of the moments in this game, it was a 3-phase football game for Notre Dame. Was it not? The game's tight. Jadarian Price, kickoff, racing to the house, big special teams play there for Notre Dame. It looked like really from the get-go, the physicality that Notre Dame was trying to play with was the emphasis. That was the point. That was the message from Marcus Freeman. I can't even imagine what the message was throughout the week. But I think you can probably think what it might have been. But Jeremiah Love goes for $134 in the first half. That kind of set the tone for where things are going to go. And what's funny is we look at SC, and SC last week was totally up for the challenge. They were totally prepared for the physicality of the Michigan game. Now, did that game maybe have a lingering effect? Perhaps, but it was a sieve this week compared to what we saw last week. So that not only problematic for SC, but it's also really pretty good indicator of what Notre Dame is too. Rushing for over 300, highly impressive moment. Obviously, special teams with big situation, and in a gotta-have-it situation. They know desperation is on their side. And this, I don't think, guarantees Notre Dame's playoff spot, but it keeps them alive. So it's understandable at this point why they played the way they played. Jeremiah Love was amazing, absolutely monster performance. 24 carries, 230 on the ground. Overall, the team was off the charts. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, both guys, total difference makers, but also tip cap to Jaden Mayava, who did have a pretty respectable game there in the first half, kind of keeping things competitive against a really good and physically up to the challenged opponent on the other sideline. Arizona State knocks off Texas Tech. One of the more shocking results of the day when you look everything up. And frankly, it really wasn't that close. It was 19-7 there in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, the Red Raiders find something. They actually go and kind of get things going a little bit. And all of a sudden, Texas Tech has this lead. And it's like, what the heck? How did this happen? I mean, it was 2 seconds ago. It felt like Texas Tech was buried, done, toast. Boom, Sun Devils go right down, 10 plays, 75 yards, calmly moving the ball down the field, and Raleek Brown punches it in with 30 seconds left on the clock. Shocking. I mean, literally shocking to see this upset. It really was. I thought Texas Tech was a juggernaut, and Sun Devils are kind of just mediocre so far in the first 6 games of the season. Flawless final drive. Amazing. Prior to Texas Tech's kind of last-minute offensive explosion, Arizona State had really played great on the defensive side all the way through from the first whistle to the end, first 56 minutes of the contest. They had held a really good offense to just 7 points. It says an awful lot about what that personnel was all about. Also, got to give some credit to Texas Tech in the fourth quarter. I mean, 15 points there in the fourth quarter. Nearly went on the road and pulled this one out. But you got to give credit to Raleek Brown, game-winning touchdown. You got to give credit to Will Hammond, the Texas Tech backup quarterback, who led a valiant effort to come back in the game, but not enough as Arizona State kind of gets a gotta-have-it win and gives what was a perfect Texas Tech in many ways, gives them that first blemish, and maybe that reveals some vulnerabilities. We'll tell you if it does when we take a peek at the tape a little bit later on. All right, Ohio State dispatches of Wisconsin. They continue to be a juggernaut. I'm starting to become like, I mean, I love Ohio State. I think they're amazing, but goodness gracious, like some of the teams they're playing. I mean, can somebody challenge them? Anybody, just so we could see what they have? Anybody. Because, I mean, the only challenge I feel like they've faced this year is Texas. And Texas, I don't know how good Texas is, if you want me to be completely honest. All right, Ohio State knocks off Wisconsin. Miami loses against Louisville. We will talk about that one on this afternoon's show. Miami and, by the way, Louisville, you got to give flowers to Jeff Brom. Goodness gracious, because that guy coached. Indiana dispatches of Michigan State 38-13. A&M wins a bit of a nail-biter Arkansas now 2 weeks in a row, just fourth quarter, valiant. All right, they get in a big hole, and then let's make it interesting. Pedal pressed, and sure enough, it becomes a 3-point game. But either way, A&M, that was a tough game. They survived, take it, and run. We already talked a little bit about Ole Miss, Georgia. We talked about Alabama, Tennessee. We talked about Texas Tech, Arizona State. We did not talk about Oregon going all the way to Rutgers, 2,500 miles cross country, and absolutely destroying Rutgers. We told you about that game and what the likelihood of an upset was. I think we put it at like 4% or 5% or whatnot. Well, the second you saw toe meet leather in that game, that 5% flipped to like 0.001%. Didn't take long for us to adjust based on just a few snaps into that one. Georgia, of course, knocks off number 5 Ole Miss. Tennessee loses on the road at number 6 Alabama. Georgia Tech with a good win on the road at Duke. They were an underdog in that game. They actually played quite well. Defensively from Georgia Tech, I think that was maybe the most impressive performance I've seen from them on that side of the ball season long. Very, very good, holding what is a pretty explosive Duke offense to like 10 points in regular minutes. They were up 27-10 with the game was, for all intents and purposes, over, and they get the job done. Oklahoma goes to South Carolina. Defense for Oklahoma travels, man. 26-7. They're back on track. That's big. Ole Miss coming to town next week. Huge game. They're on ABC. That'll be at noon Eastern time on ABC. Missouri goes to Auburn, gets a win in double overtime. Gosh, you're starting to just feel for Auburn, aren't you? Like every game is close. Every game comes down to the whistle. They had a fourth quarter lead in this one, and Missouri storms all the way back, gets the win in overtime, and forces a 4-and-out by Auburn there in that second period. They get done. Virginia barely beating Washington State. Washington State the last couple weeks, by the way, they found something. They go to Oxford, Mississippi and challenge them. And they go home, play Virginia. They challenge them there. So good, gutsy, and difficult win there for the Wahoos. South Florida knocks off Florida Atlantic. Texas, referenced them earlier, 16-13 overtime win over Kentucky. And by the way, that one was not overwhelmingly surprising. We put that upset percentage meter at about 10%. Like, that was going to be a bit of a trickier game than I think most people realize. Kentucky matches up pretty well against teams like Texas. UAB, shout out to Alex Mortensen, colleague with his dad. He's a good dude. He's been a coach at UAB. He's been the offensive coordinator, calling plays. His side of the ball has not struggled. They somehow find a way to knock off Memphis, and Memphis had multiple chances inside the 10-yard line to punch it in and tie the game, but UAB holds on their end of the game situation. Good for the Blazers, good for Alex Mortensen, bad for the 22nd ranked Memphis Tigers, who now have a loss in conference play, and now they essentially need to run the table if they want to get back to the college football playoff conversation and beat USF in the American Athletic Championship. Cincinnati knocks off Oklahoma State 49-17, and then number 25 Nebraska loses to Minnesota on Friday night, and that game was gross. I don't know what else to tell you. It was a not so hot performance, frankly, from the Cornhuskers. Not a good performance at all. Really a fun day. We will revisit it. Keep it locked in here on Always College Football. That's just rolling through the top 25, rolling through a couple of quick outcomes, rolling through a couple thoughts from the big games. But we will do our deep dive now. I'm about to go turn this camera around, sit down, put some games on the TV, and dial it up. So make sure you check back in with us later this afternoon, early this evening, because we will post our 10 takeaways from Week 8 of the college football season. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Like, rate, subscribe. We appreciate you. We'll see you this afternoon or this evening. It's Always College Football.
Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.